There's nothing more inspiring than hearing real people overcome real challenges to get the results they want, especially when those are the same results you'd like to see in your own life. That's why in this bonus episode, we are going deep with another incredible success story. Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Sukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a busy life. It's a little bit nerdy, a little bit funny, and a little bit revolutionary. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real. Hey there, and welcome back to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ruth Sukup, and I'm the founder of Thinlicious and the creator of the Thin Adapted System, as well as the New York Times bestselling author of 7 books. And in this special bonus episode, we are taking another deep dive into what transforming your life through adopting the Thinlicious lifestyle actually looks like by sitting down to chat with one of our amazing clients and now TAS Certified Coach, Laura Collis. Laura joined our program in 2022 after first pursuing her own health journey to manage her Hashimotos Thyroiditis and other hormonal changes that were happening as she approached menopause. Like many of our clients, her primary goal wasn't actually weight loss. She just wanted to feel better. But as always, it is better to hear her talk about it in her own words. So here's what she had to say. Laura, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you, Ruth. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So let's just start with hearing a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, where you're from.
Sure. My name is Laura Collis. I live in Toronto, Canada, and we recently actually started splitting our time between here and St. Petersburg, Florida, which is really fun and exciting.
Yes.
I am a mom of 2 adult kids. My daughter just got engaged. My son is finishing up his undergrad in architecture. And I spend my time between being a health coach and also an account rep for an apparel company.
Oh, fun. That's a fun
Yeah,
job. I love it.
yeah.
Do you find now that your daughter just got engaged, do you find you're at this age, like my kids are a little bit younger. They're not quite getting married yet. My daughter just went to school, but all my friends' kids are getting married and my nieces and nephews. Like, I think we have 8 weddings next year.
I
All of a sudden
know.
we are in wedding season and it's crazy. It's like we went 20 years without going to a single wedding. And now all of a sudden it's like, bring it on.
I hear you. I hear you for that for sure. And then next it'll be babies. Who knows?
Next, it will be babies. Yes, but I
Mhm.
love babies. I'm like, bring me all the babies. That's what I
Yeah.
volunteer in the church nursery once a month, and that's my time to just hold the
Oh, that's so
babies. I love
nice.
it.
I love that.
Awesome. So let's hear a little bit about your story. How did you get started in this journey? Tell us the things.
Yeah. So I just a little bit of background. I guess growing up, I always thought that I was kind of the healthy one. And I think that's because I was thin. And I always equated thinness with health. Now, I am 56 and I sort of grew up in the mid 80s, early 90s. That was high school, university to me. And that, if you recall, or know of anyway, is like
Yes.
peak aerobics craze. Like everybody was working out and supermodels came on board and we all strove to look like that. Like we did anything
Yes.
we could do to be healthy, quote unquote healthy and fit and skinny, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it was very much about calories in versus calories out. We exercised like crazy, like we did the Jane Fonda tapes. I mean, anything
Yes.
we could do, we did. And retrospectively, I now understand from where I'm at in life and having done some education and certifications and so forth, how much damage that actually did to me and to my body. While I never really struggled with the weight per se, I think it's a combination of genetics, metabolism, and then of course, crazy calorie restriction, and then also low fat, which we can talk about as well. But I just always maintain my weight. And I thought, well, that must be good. I'm not overweight, so I must be healthy. And then slowly with time and age, things started to creep up. And when I hit midlife, it was probably around 45, 46. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is the autoimmune
Yep.
version of hypothyroidism. So that was kind of my wake up aha moment when I realized, okay, I can't, something's got to give. There's something wrong and I'm not being able to figure this out.
Right. Wow. So,
Yeah.
but you still didn't experience much weight gain with that? Because a lot of people do
A
with
lot of people
thyroiditis.
do. And I think because I was still calorie restricting,
Mm,
in a not
right.
healthy way. When I look back, I also realized like I had a ton of gut issues, but it just nothing was clicking. And I didn't
Yeah.
know enough about my body, my hormones, all of that to
To
make the connection,
understand
at
what was
least at
going on.
that point. Yeah.
Right. And also like we get told this is just normal. It's just part of getting older and it's normal to not feel good and it's normal to have all these like issues and need medication and all of the things too. I grew up like so I was a little behind you, a few years
Yeah.
behind you. But and definitely I remember in the 80s when I was more of like 10, right? Like
Hmm.
this product came out. I don't know if you remember this Get in Shape Girl. It was like aerobics gear that was marketed to like young girls, right? It was all about
Oh,
aerobics and it was this whole you could get these kits and you would do all these exercises and aerobics and I remember just like I want that. I need Get in Shape Girl. Like, right? Like how
yeah.
terrible now when I think about it. Like, oh, and then being like high school age in the 90s when it was low fat everything, like fat free craze, and just what you said about the supermodels, like Kate Moss. I remember like looking at Kate Moss and thinking she was so beautiful and all that, just really like thin, super thin, and oh man, you just think
Mhm.
about like what did we grow up with just this attitude of like, oh, it's terrible. And it's true. Like
Yeah.
now 20 years later, all of us women who grew up in the 80s and 90s are dealing with the, or I guess it's more like 40 years later, we're dealing with the repercussions of all of that, of
It's
like
so
this kind
true.
of toxic culture that we grew up with.
Yeah. But even my mom was low fat. Like, it affected every generation, not just the young
Yeah.
girls. And to be honest, I'm having trouble getting her to switch out of that mentality, even though it's not as predominant. I don't find it as predominant in the stores, at least, where every item you ever want to grocery shop for also has the low fat, fat-free, whatever light version. I don't
Yeah.
see it as much, but it's still there.
It's
And
still
it is
there.
such a mentality.
Yes, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So you started experiencing some health issues, and how
Mhm.
did you get involved with Thinlicious?
Well, I because of my health issues, I got certified as a nutrition and wellness coach. I started on my own health journey and I just started to dive into the information and the research. I did a hormone health certification as well. So I became very interested in health and started doing some coaching on my own. And I actually found you through one of your business programs to help me establish my coaching business. And
Yes.
then, yeah, lo and behold, you came out with Thinlicious, and I was like, I have to know more because even though I knew the basics of, nutrition and wellness, the things that I was doing still weren't necessarily moving the needle for me in the way that I had wanted or hoped that they were. I had dabbled with low carb and I know Thinlicious isn't keto, but there's a keto-like component of it,
Hmm.
and I never really wanted to do it. I was afraid of it. I thought, it's not for me, and I just became more interested in learning more about it, and because I resonated so much with the way that you teach, I really wanted to learn more from you and decided I'm going to do this. I'm going to try it and see if it helps, my health where I'm not being able to make progress on my own.
Yeah. So what happened?
So I started with your beta program when you launched in June of 2022. I went all in. I'm doing this, and then I ended up being able in 6 months to reverse my or to reduce my thyroid antibodies by 50%.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. I really noticed the changes to my blood work. It was astonishing.
That's amazing. So how
Yeah.
like how did that impact how you felt?
It was night and day, honestly. I had a lot of inflammation from the autoimmunity, and that went away. Like I would wake up, my joints would be stiff. I could feel it in my hands, my knuckles and things like that. And it went away. And then I did have a little bit because I was also in perimenopause and wanted to really ignore the fact that that was happening. I
Don't
was
we all?
yeah, I was also starting to get some symptoms, some hot flashes, the night sweats, just from my hormones changing as a result of age. And I that all stopped too. I mean, as soon as I started doing eating this way, that all went away. Even my cycle regulated itself, which was great. And I
Amazing.
ended up not going into menopause. I'm just coming up to a year post-menopause now, and I'm 56. So I really
Amazing.
was able to regulate my cycle and prevent a lot of symptoms.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
And so what is that I want to touch on this because you mentioned it right like the whole like keto thing. Let's just talk about this for a second because it
sure.
does scare a lot of people like, oh, this is I didn't know this is keto or is this keto or this sounds a lot like keto.
Yeah,
And it's like really hard to explain that there's there is a ketogenic component of our program, especially in the beginning, because literally the only way to really like reset your system, reset your metabolism, get your hormones back on track, reverse the insulin resistance is to go very dramatically like no sugar, right? No sugar. And what this is what people don't understand too is that like carbohydrates are really just sugar. It's we say low carb versus no sugar, right? People can even be like, oh, I'm okay with cutting out sugar, but I'm not going to give up carbohydrates. Well, actually, it's you have to because it's your body doesn't know the difference between sugar and carbohydrates. So your body
right.
thinks it's all the same thing. And so the only way, if you've been like in this mode for years and years and years of building up this insulin resistance, you have to almost do like a dramatic reset. And so in our program, we do that and we talk about that and like, and, but that's not the long-term goal either. The long-term goal is metabolic flexibility. The long-term goal is to heal your body from the insulin resistance, from all the hormonal imbalance, from the gut issues and all the like leaky gut syndrome and all of that stuff. And you do that by cutting out sugar. And once you do that, then you can start to introduce it back in because your body is designed to eat everything, right? We're omnivores as humans. We're designed to be healthy. And if we were just out in nature eating all like the food that nature provides the way animals do, none of us would be overweight. None of us would have problems because our body knows how to handle all that stuff and to handle it regularly. The problem is that we've basically destroyed our systems from working the way that they're intended to. And so until you get that back, you can't add in all the other stuff. So that's why it works in phases. And I think that that's like such a great, so how, like what phase would you consider yourself in now in our program?
Now I'm in maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
definitely, because I've been in it for a while. And actually, prior to joining and starting, I had already eliminated gluten because that's the recommendation for thyroid health. So I
Yes.
was already somewhat lower carb than I had been before. So it was a little bit of an easier transition because I wasn't eating those foods that I was eating prior to.
Right.
But every now and again, and the funny thing is, like now that I'm actually officially postmenopause, the change in your body, or at least what I've experienced with that lack of hormones, like your hormones just sort of flatline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Month 12 of no periods, all of a sudden it's like, what happened to me? At least
Yeah.
that's been my experience because
Yeah.
it's all gone, right?
Yeah.
And that really did change things again. So I had to adjust. I went back to phase two for a little while just so that I could recalibrate and make sure that um, I wasn't going to, take any steps backwards, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now you feel like you've been able to regulate that and are you
Yeah.
doing sort of hormone replacement or anything like that?
I did add that as well, just almost preventatively because there are other benefits to it, especially like bone
Mhm.
health or for bone loss anyway.
Right.
Um, And I I didn't want to have hot flashes and all that. I mean, everything touch wood has been great, but I'm a little bit of like I like to experiment on myself a little bit as well. But it really was eye-opening how much things change in menopause. And the thing that I would recommend or would want to say to people who are considering joining TAS or in TAS, and if you feel like you're struggling at all, like this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Your body
Mm.
doesn't all of a sudden because you do something, it doesn't just change. Like think of puberty and how long it took us to go through puberty and all the things we had to go through till we finally sort of felt like we made it to the other side. I feel like
Yeah.
menopause is going to be a little bit like that.
Yes.
It's not like all of a sudden you're in menopause and then everything's stable. No, your body has to adjust to not having those hormones anymore. Even if
Yeah.
you are replacing them to some degree, it's not at the same levels. So we
Right.
have to make other adjustments, and that's lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Mhm.
really is. It's such a like if you can get out of that like instant gratification mentality, like I'm doing the things now and now it needs to, and that's where I'm always like, nope. It's a gradual change. Like don't look at this as like I'm just going to go really hard for a couple weeks and then I'm going to be fine. Like that's not going to work. It's just over time, over time, over time, over time, and you learn how to listen to your body.
Yeah.
And and then you start to notice these little things and you can make smaller tweaks and smaller changes, and it sounds like you're doing a really amazing job of that. So what were some of the, if you were already gluten free and you'd already been kind of doing a lot of this research on your own, what were some of the big like aha moments that you had once you started in the program?
First of all, adding healthy fats. That I
Mm,
think for somebody who was sort of brainwashed to be low fat, which a lot of us are, was really eye-opening and how much better I felt when I had some fat in my diet. Also the protein. And I think, at this age and stage of life, it really is, it can be hard to get it all in, but it makes such a difference when you do. And then thirdly, the exercise component really needs to click in midlife, whether we want to or not. It just does make a big difference.
yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what does that look like for you?
I'm a walker. I walk every morning. I have a friend that lives in the neighborhood and we walk an hour most mornings, weather provided. I also do yoga a few times a week. I guess I'm more of a gentle exerciser, but I did have to add some strength training. So I
Yeah.
purchased a weighted vest, so it's a no-brainer. I just put it on before my
Oh,
walk,
yeah.
and
How do you like that? I've been thinking about getting one of those.
they're amazing. I will
Really?
say they can be a little warm. So living in a warm climate, they're
So
a little
Florida.
sweaty.
Yeah.
But in the winter it'd be great. And
Yeah.
yeah, I started off slow, but I'm going to increase and get a heavier one because even just around the house, if you're vacuuming or doing some sort of,
Yeah.
household chore, it's great. Just throw it on and you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. That's amazing. This would be the time to try it now that it's finally cooling off here in Florida. So
Yeah,
are you in
definitely.
Florida now or are you
No,
not quite
I'm in
yet?
Toronto right now,
Okay.
but it's warm today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still nice weather. So got to enjoy that
Yes.
fall weather. That's the one thing I do miss about Florida is like, we do have seasons because it's not
Yes.
90 anymore, but it's not quite the same
I
for
know. I
sure.
know.
So what has been kind of the biggest thing that you've learned from this journey, or that has surprised you the most about as you've been through this journey? And now you've been on it for a few years, so you've kind of had this like longer time frame to really look back and reflect. What have you feel like are the biggest things that you've learned about yourself and your body and just your health in general?
Yeah, I think really tuning in and listening to your body is really important, and you get better with that with practice. That doesn't happen all at once either. Trusting the process is super important because I think we have expectations. As I was saying, things are going to happen really quickly, and when they don't, we get frustrated and we want to give up. But if you just change your mindset so that you know that it isn't an overnight kind of thing, that it really does make a difference. And yeah, just taking it a step at a time with everything in life, any kind of change, especially a big change like your diet, it makes all the difference if you don't beat yourself up if you have a little treat once in a while, or um, you fall off track. Then you just got to start again and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has been the most helpful for you in terms of just like helping you stay consistent and stay on track?
Well, I was really resistant to having to track at the beginning because I thought, oh, do I really want to do that? It's just another thing to do. But that really gave a lot of insight into, first of all, how different foods were affecting my body, things that I wouldn't necessarily have expected. And also just to keep me on track, I think. It became a habit that was really, really good to make sure that I was following through and continuing on the journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, and we do talk about that a lot in our program. Like, I know it's kind of a pain, but there's no, like, you need the data points, right? Like, we don't count
Mhm.
calories in our program. That's something that we're very adamant about. Like, don't worry about calories. It really, truly, and people have such a hard time, especially like those of us who have grown up in the 80s and 90s where everything was always calories, 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 and you have to restrict and starve yourself and be miserable. And you really don't. But you do want to make sure that like you know what you're putting into your body and you know what the breakdown of those foods are and also how they're impacting you so that you can start to feel confident about the choices that you're making.
Yeah.
And it's such a big thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So, is there anything that you can share from a coach's perspective that you just notice about like people who are getting started in this journey? Like, if there's anything, if you could go and just be like, sit somebody down and be like, here's what you need to know, what would you say?
I have to go back to trusting the process. I see a lot of people getting frustrated that I'm in, such and such a phase, week, whatever, and I don't feel like anything's happening. But we're all coming at this and into this from a different place. Who knows what level of insulin resistance you have? Who knows? Even genetics does play a role to some degree, and we don't necessarily know what those things are. So I really just feel like I don't know how to make sure that people understand that they need to just go with it and not be so, I don't know, antsy about making it all work. It can take time. Like I was saying earlier, our bodies, you know, this journey of menopause for me is not going to happen overnight, just like puberty
Right.
didn't happen overnight. We have to
No,
be
it's so
patient,
true.
and it will happen for you as long as you're being consistent and, going step by step by step. It'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the analogy that you gave of like comparing it to puberty with teenagers, right? Because I have two teenagers who have recently been experiencing puberty. One is still in it, one is like just past it, right? And you're right. It's years. Like it is years
Uh,
of emotional ups and downs. It is years of like, what the heck is going on? And you
mhm,
just have to like be like, I'm just going to hold on for the ride. But you're absolutely right. Like that perimenopause, we've had a few doctors on here talking about menopause over the last few months and just some really great episodes, which if you haven't listened to those, go back and listen. Those of you who are listening right now, Dr. Kate, who talked about hormone replacement therapy and stuff. And she talks about like it's 10 years. Perimenopause is on average 10 years for women. And then
yes.
that's only like until you get to menopause. And then you're not at menopause until you've not had your period for a year. And
Mhm,
that's another couple of years of like adjustments. Like you're in it for the long haul. And I think if you can take that approach, just like you're saying to your overall health journey,
mhm,
that's such a great attitude. And I agree with you. Like I do. And I totally relate to the impatience because I'm the same way, right? I'm such an instant gratification person of just wanting it to all happen right now. And what if I'm working hard for a week, I used to joke, I used to back up like many, many years ago before I started my business. I was a spa director of a very large day spa. So I had like 50 employees, right, that working for the spa, all women. And all my front desk girls were like 20-year-old college students, right? And I would joke because they were, it was a very nice, like very like ritzy spa. And so the girls that would come in that wanted to work there were, a little bit like upper crust or whatever. And they'd never worked a job before. and they would come and they would show up for a week and think that because they showed up for a week and like on time, they deserved a raise after like 5 days. And that would happen like multiple times, right? And I'd be like, what is up with these girls that think they deserve an award because they showed up to work to the job that they're getting paid to do for 5 days? But we're the same way with our health. We're the same way. Like, oh, if I showed up and tracked my food for 5 days, then I should have lost 10 pounds by now. And it's just
Exactly.
like, if you can get out of that mode, like, no, it doesn't happen that fast. But and just because you don't see the number necessarily happening on the scale doesn't mean there's not a lot of stuff that's happening inside too. Because it took you a while to get to the spot you're in, and it's going to take a while to get out of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I only had 50% improvement, and that took 6 months, and
Yeah.
it's still not where I want it to be. And this is 2 years
Right.
later. So it
Yeah.
really, yeah, we are such an instant gratification society, but I think there is no such thing.
So what does life look like for you now that you're in maintenance mode?
Well, I think it's just less, maybe a little bit less structured. Um, I do like to have we like to go out for dinner a lot, and we like to enjoy ourselves, and I love, sort of like you, I love to have a glass of champagne, and I don't feel bad about it anymore.
Mhm.
And I think I used to, and oh, I can't have that, and I was very restrictive. And now that I understand the science and understand better about my body in general, I'm a little bit more lax of what I can and can't do. And if I feel and find that something does affect me, because there still is a little bit of the learning curve with this whole hormone thing,
Yeah.
then I just go back to the drawing board and go, okay, let's try to connect the dots here a little bit.
And see what's happening. I love that. That's such a
It's
great attitude. I mean, that's really like freedom is what we're ultimately
it's
going
totally
for.
freedom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Laura, I feel like we could talk about this all day, but I want to be mindful of time. So any final thoughts that you want to share before we sign off?
Just, I think my goal and my mission going into becoming a nutrition coach, when I had to go on my own health journey, was to really try to be an agent for change, because I really feel like women are the ones that are going to make the change for everybody. If we can change the next generation below us and have them have better health, how is that going to impact everything, like our healthcare systems, the planet in general, and the health and wellness of all the future generations? I just feel like it's such an important thing with everything else that's going on in the world, and how so many of our systems are crumbling, that there's so much that is within our own power that we can do.
So true. I love that. Really,
Yeah.
really so true.
Yeah.
So, and we can change the world through health.
We can
I really do
we're
believe
gonna
that
do
too.
it. We are
Gonna
gonna do
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. Thanks for sharing your story. Thank you for being such an amazing coach in our program. And I'm just so grateful for you.
Thank you, Ruth.
Wasn't that just such great advice? It's so important to remember that health is a lifelong journey. And honestly, it's so inspiring to hear what can happen when you approach it that way, right? As a lifestyle and not just a diet. And of course, that brings me to the end of this bonus episode, but I will be back with another new episode very soon.